I would like to introduce our next keynote speaker. So Michael Hassan is Senior Managing Director and Head of Core Banking Transformation Program at SBERBANK. Michael has 20 years experience core banking software development and currently oversees core banking transformation at SBERBANK, Russia's largest bank. Prior to joining SBERBANK, Michael was Director of Investment Banking IT at Deutsche Bank, where he played a key role in creating the Moscow Software Engineering Center, as well as defining the bank's sourcing strategy for software development. Please welcome Michael.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to talk today about the key role that in-memory computing technology plays nowadays in the transformation or core banking platform and building and actually enabling a new web-scaled architecture for core banking systems or platforms, which never was possible before. First of all, a bit of history, right? So over the course of last few years, maybe like 5 to 10 years, the dramatic increase of the usage of financial services through internet actually has changed the banking and financial service business dramatically. So today, the internet browser or mobile device is the main window to the world for most of our clients. And clients actually do not need the financial service itself or money, right? So money or financial services is actually or becomes an infrastructure for satisfying client needs. And client needs are about everything, right? So finally, people do not need mortgage itself, right? They need house. And the mortgage is just a link in the satisfaction of the needs of house. And similar thing for credit cards, right? So client doesn't need to have a credit card. Client needs to do instant shopping. And in the past, the financial service was, as I mentioned, the link in the chain of the client needs, but it was not the weakest link from the performance perspective. Today, situation becomes vice versa, right? So in the past, the problem was not the mortgage itself. The problem was to find the good house. And it may take months for client to find the house itself. So today, he can easily find the house through internet and even in different country. It may be like even on different continent, right? And then it becomes more and more important to provide all these financial services instantly and online. So as a result, what the data and the amount of transactions the core banking system needs to handle increased dramatically. So today, with all this online banking, hundreds of millions of clients trying to get the service, the financial services or money transfer simultaneously. So to be able to do that, the core banking system needs to process in real time the petabytes of data, and it results actually to hundreds financial transactions a second. I'll just give you an example from the Alibaba data, right? So it compares the number of transactions per second through the main day of sales on Alibaba, which is November 11th, right? So for example, in 2009, the peak volumes on this day were about 400 transactions a second. So in 2016, this number was 170,000 transactions a second, out of which 120,000 were together with instant payments. So the only way to provide such performance increase and supply such real-time performance is to move completely in memory. So traditional core banking platforms, the legacy platforms that were built on vertically integrated architecture, actually it was product-aligned architecture because the banking business was evolving product by product, and once bank, for example, moving to new area of business, start issuing new product, let's say mortgages, right? So then he builds a new platform that supports mortgages. So all these legacy platforms, first, they can't cope anymore with such volumes. B, they can't provide client centricity, because the core of the new architecture, and this is actually the core of any web-scaled architecture, where all main interaction between the client and the service provider happens through internet, is client centricity. So again, with all this legacy architecture, each system, each product reliance system had its own client profile. And basically, to collect all client-related data together and process is real time is becoming nearly impossible, because it's kept in different systems, each of which works near to the threshold of its current performance. And basically, to pull away in real time data about the client, put them together, and be able to process in real time for real time decision making becomes nearly impossible. So the only way to provide or to meet all those requirements is to move the data into the memory and actually start building the big transaction processing engine in web scale architecture, which basically very quickly brings us to the conclusion that it should look like in-memory data grid. Another important thing that is that together with huge volumes of transaction processing, that system should be capable to process real time. And another thing is real-time analytics and a lot of new other features that related to artificial intelligence and to making different decisions in real time for providing personal offers or personalized financial services. It's also very important. So therefore, on this slide, right, so I would like to present very high level the new architecture for the next generation or next era core banking platforms. So as you see, in the center of the platform is client data, client profile, which is in memory, which also is not only information about client related to its financial products. It's all knowledge about the client, which is important for to provide them next level of service, right? Next level of quality service. For example, right, if you're talking about personalization, we very often need to know the client preferences, for example, his particular location, etc., right? Because based on the location, the service, the offer may also differ from one to another. It's the amount of data that needs to be that system needs to deal with. Again, it's petabytes and petabytes, right? So the traditional relation database can't do anything. They are not designed for horizontal scale. So therefore, if we are talking about like deep analysis or deep machine learning that we need to do on top of data, it's definitely something like Hadoop architecture, right? So basically everything that you need offline goes to Hadoop, and everything that you need online goes to in-memory. If you look on the situation with in-memory data grids, right? So just a few years ago, the main users of data grids were the companies that does weather forecast, or it were different scientific and research centers that building such grids or supercomputers, right? So I would like to talk a bit about like different big grids that today are used. And again, these are from the public list called top 500 supercomputers in the world. But basically, you see, right, that, for example, the largest supercomputer was built for National Center of Atmosphere in United States. But the companies like Alibaba or even banks, like we're talking about, I'm presenting SBERBANK, right? So we are starting building new grids, actually very big grids that are comparable to the grids that I mentioned that in the past were used only for weather forecast or in scientific areas, right? So, and for example, in banking system, I'm sure that very soon many banks will be using like thousands and thousands of nodes joined into single in-memory grid cluster. And from power perspective, it may be still a bit less powerful than like the largest supercomputers in the world, but from amount of memory that these grids will be able to handle, they will be much, much bigger, right? So you see the comparison. For example, 2,000 node grid can easily handle up to 1.5 petabytes of data. And if we are talking about like, and this is, the data is actually the primary reason why the grid is so big, right? While, for example, in weather forecast or in research centers, the primary reason for building grids was to get bigger compute power, right? So data was not so dramatic, the amount of data was not so dramatic for them, therefore those grids may be more powerful than banking ones, but they handle much less volumes of data, right? So about hundreds of terabytes. But again, this is very, very interesting comparison, and I know for sure that we are not the only bank who today moving into in-memory architecture. Again, there is no bank yet in the world who already built or moved to in-memory completely, but definitely this is the direction to which all large banks in the world are thinking and trying to move, because this is the only way how we or banks may win the competition in web-scale architecture and in competing with traditional internet service providers. So new features of the platform, right? So the more productive the system is, right? The better features you can do real time. And again, like most of them require artificial intelligence or machine learning, right? So it's obvious that when we were talking about platforms that handles 100,000 transactions a second, the STP rate, stays through processing rate for this platform should be 100%, because otherwise, if it's not 100%, then the number of exceptions, when we are talking about of scale 100,000 transactions a second, right? So even 0.001% gives like 10,000 exceptions a day or millions exceptions a month, right? So it's impossible. It's above any reasonable cost to handle all these exceptions manually, right? So the only way to avoid them is to have a lot of logic that actually can automatically handle those exceptions. And if something wrong, and based on machine learning algorithms, actually know from the historic data how to handle the exceptions correctly, right? I can give you a couple examples, right? So you know that, probably you know that one of the most frequent reasons of the breaks in payments is when, for example, utility company moves the account from one bank to another, and the clients still proceed paying bills using old account number, right, or old bank details. So basically what happens, the client, because many of these clients have also automatic payments, right, installed in their banking system. So basically what's happening then at one day, the system discovers that a lot of payments go to the wrong account number. And then system should be able to analyze what has happened with the client, with the utility company. And if the system discovers that utility company just moved to another bank or changed the account number, the system may automatically correct the payment details and correctly route the payment to the right destination. In the old world, it immediately brought to the situation where you have hundreds of thousands of breaks. If you're talking about like countrywide or national service provider, right? And then you have like the same amount of calls into the call center that actually you can't handle in the reasonable time frames. Another thing is that a lot of, we call this back office to zero or operations to zero, right? So if you have, so today, even banks with small number of transactions have a relatively high back office population, right? So it's the headcount of back office, even for, I'm not talking only about tier 1 bank, I'm talking, it may relate also to tier 2 bank. It's easily thousands and thousands of people. And their work can be easily, maybe not now can be easily, but over the course of next like 5 to 6 years, will be completely automated. And basically, like this is the graph from Gartner, or diagram from Gartner. Again, this is a forecast how quickly using in-memory technology we can, like, jobs will be automated in different industries. But again, this is the very important focus of the further usage of the in-memory computing. So chatbots, right? So these are the key trends, again, specifically in banking, like 5 or 6 things where the focus is from the automation and new features of the new banking platforms, right? So first is the chatbots, and of course the idea is that the clients may stop using the call centers because most of their needs or questions can be easily answered or satisfied by chatbots. And again, to be able to do that, like it's not only important to implement the good chatbot, it's also important to have instant access from the chatbot to all the client data. Because basically this is the primary reason why client calls to the call center and where the call center operators spend their time. So ROBO-ADVISORS, this is automatic trading. And again, right, so probably the trade automation in the investment bank was actually the very first area where the in-memory computing came to the banking. Personalized office that I already mentioned. Internet of Things, again, in the world of Internet of Things, basically the needs to make the financial transaction may come out of any device. I'll give you a few examples, right? So it's not the science fiction anymore when you can just, using the car, come to the oil station, and based on the oil meter, you can, the car may, if the car is integrated with the banking system, the car may pay itself for the oil or gas, right? So, and you don't need to go out of the car and pay and do the payment using the banking card. Another thing is smart fridges, right? So so you know, today there are new models of fridges. They're still a bit expensive, like maybe $5,000–6,000 US, but still they already exist, right? So from like companies like Samsung, like Bosch, etc., right? So where the fridge knows everything that is inside the fridge. So, and therefore, if you have your standard food basket, right? So the fridge can, connected to internet, may automatically make the order of your food and pay for it. Anti-fraud, obviously, right? So the most of current transactions goes electronically, and to prevent from the fraud, there are very sophisticated algorithms that try to monitor all these transactions and make the decision if the transaction is suspicious or is it a good one. And the operation efficiency, this is something I just mentioned, which is about like build efficient back office processes that basically require zero personnel involved. Actually, a bit more details on those topics. So from chatbot perspective, the most popular ones today is, again, this is based on the information or statistics from the call centers, right? So the more popular questions that people ask in the call centers actually are the first ones that are automated through chatbots. This is rendering information about products and services, provision of contact details, like transactions, and financial advising. Robo-advising for automatic trading, right? So actually you see the data, how big volumes already today are used by automated robots. They do trading. And again, like you could imagine that today, about $1 trillion is managed by robots on American exchange. And again, there are different, very sophisticated algorithms how these auto traders work. But this is the reality. And these guys were the first products in banking industry who start using the in-memory computing, because the efficiency of high-frequency trading is measured by microseconds. So, like, for example, early 2000, this good latency for auto trader was about 5-7 milliseconds. So today, they all compete for microseconds. And again, the only opportunity to achieve such performance, such fast performance, such fast reaction on the events that are happening on the exchange is in memory, to do everything in memory. Personalized offers, right? Again, a lot of things, right? So in the world of internet, you need to get the best offer, and as I mentioned earlier, the financial services or money is only one link in the chain. Finally, client goes to that place where he can get the best final offer, not the particular step in this offer, but the final result. And again, in the world of web, in the world of internet, all offers are the same, right? So offers from the bank, or offers from the internet service provider, or offers from the Google or Amazon, client doesn't care. So therefore, he selects the service from the best provider, not because the provider is a bank or is an internet company. Internet of Things, right? So same thing. The more devices you have connected to the internet, the more options or more ways to satisfy the client needs exist. And the payment or financial transaction is inside of most of the sections. And today, like, again, the smart insurance contracts, right? So like as I mentioned, instant payments from different devices, smart homes, smart TVs, everything is extremely important, and it will generate huge volume of the transactions during course of next few years. Anti-fraud, again, very important thing. It's identification and authorization of the transactions, validation of the cards, identification of different frauds. Again, if everything is completely automatic, the impact of the fraud may be dramatic. And the importance of the automation of this fraud detection is a huge competitive advantage for the banking platform. And finally, the operation efficiency, right? So again, we are using a natural language processing algorithm for doing the analysis. So we are trying to identify deviation in the transactions and build different algorithms that do auto-correction of these transactions. So it's optimization in recruiting and hiring process, same thing, right? So again, it's maybe not particular banking problem, but it's problem for many big corporate companies that the manual hiring and recruiting process requires a lot of efforts and a lot of money. And again, today with all these internet services and things, the importance of artificial intelligence in the recruiting increase a lot. And again, speech analysis and speech analytics to automate completely the call centers, right? So as I mentioned, one way is the chatbot, and another way is voice recognition, and the same thing, automation of the call centers and eliminating the operators there. So summarizing all these web environment and environment where Internet of Everything, right, changes the financial services dramatically, right? So it's also, and as a result, the banking business is changing dramatically as well. And like to be efficient in this area, now you need to build real web-scale platform that have huge horizontal scalability options and needs to process petabytes of data and hundreds of thousands transactions a second. And the only way today, how I see it, to move into this direction is to use in-memory computing and in-memory grids technology that can enable this architecture for banking industry. And this new architecture is based on client-centricity paradigm, and will have a lot of intellectual mechanism, a lot of real-time decision-making that will be naturally built into it. Without all of these, banks could never win the competition for the client against the internet service providers. So that's basically it. So if you have any questions, please ask, or we can talk during the conference and breakout sessions.